If you've ever seen a pageant or been in a pageant, you've probably heard sentences like, I want to empower women, I want to inspire other women, and I want to show them that if I can do this, they can too. Here's the thing. Deep down, you know, it all sounds the same. And even worse, it doesn't even sound like you. Welcome back to the Pageant Interview and Mindset Mastery series. I'm your host, Nikita Tanmani on the Conquer podcast. And in today's episode, I'm going to be coaching you through how do you structure and frame pageant answers that actually matter. So grab a cup of coffee, get your notebook, grab a pen because you're going to be taking notes, and let's dive straight in. First things first, when you compete in a beauty pageant, you want to leave the delulu energy outside the interview room. What I mean when I say that is, yes, you want to win, and yes, you want to make a difference in the world, and yes, you've manifested this, and you really, really want this. However, in the interview room, that's not going to be enough. There's a time and place to be using that energy. However, when a judge asks you why you want to win or what are you going to do if you were to become the title holder, delulu is just not going to make you win. It's not going to make the cut. In an interview or on stage, you want to give answers that get quoted, that get remembered, that on-stage answer that goes viral and it's being replayed year after year, even after the pageant is long done. That's in fact exactly what happened with my client Ojasvi Sharma, who placed top 10 at Miss Universe India just last year, and now she's made a comeback this year, and her on-stage answer from last year is being replayed all over social media. Let me tell you something. Pageant answers that actually matter and make a difference, they're not about sounding perfect, they're about sounding iconic. And in today's episode, I'm going to be telling you the 3 ingredients that I share with my coaching clients, never shared before on YouTube, that make for a legacy answer. Because after all, that's the kind of impact you want to have with your words. So what are those 3 ingredients? If you want your answer to be remembered, if you want your answer to make the judges stop taking notes, lean in, and make the whole room go quiet, you have to start with 1, your truth, 2, your story, and 3, your answer needs to have a universal message that resonates with every single person listening to you. In order for us to learn what constitutes as a legacy answer, we first also have to think of what's not a legacy answer. Let's say the pageant question you have is, what is the most important lesson you've learned? Now, a default answer, and some contestants do this, is a one-word answer. The most important lesson I've learned is resilience. Obviously, not satisfying and not impressive at all. Here's the second type of answer that 90% of contestants end up giving. The most important lesson I've learned is resilience. Throughout my teenage years, I have faced various setbacks and challenges. I rose through those challenges despite the fact that people tried to hold me back. I persevered, and with grit and strength and resilience, I am here, and da-da-da-da-da. You get the gist. Okay, she elaborated, she walked me through what she thinks is a storyline, but honestly, this is the biggest mistake that 90% of contestants are doing. This answer did have her truth, but was there a story? Actually, no. Even though this contestant probably thinks she did have a story, the thing is, can I imagine what she was going through? And the answer to that is no. So, storytelling is only effective when it's visual. What this contestant ended up doing is she told the story. However, effective storytelling is not telling, it's showing. And so your storytelling needs to be visual. It needs to be able to make the judges transport to that scene and kind of like have a flashback of your life. And I can imagine you in your teenage years. Now, at this point, with that kind of answer, the judges are probably thinking, was she bullied for her appearance? Was it a race thing? Was it something that had to do with her academic performance? What was the reason? What were people holding her back from? And there are so many questions that are unanswered in this answer. And because of that, there's no story. And She also just ends by talking about herself. Was there a universal message that conveys and resonates with everyone? Not really. The reason being, you never caught my attention in the first place. So, did I take anything from her answer? Nothing unusual, nothing that I couldn't have gotten off a Wikipedia page, and nothing that makes me remember her. Because this kind of answer could have come from anyone and it has no personal touch to it. For a legacy answer, your truth is that the lesson that you've learned is resilience. But now for visual storytelling, which is part 2 of your answer, you have to recollect what exactly is that instance in your life that you're going to be using as an example to further solidify the fact that that is the lesson that you took from that incident. Now, in this case, let's say the story is about her not having won her previous pageant. In that case, the answer would look like, the biggest lesson I have learned is that of resilience. After my last pageant, where I did not end up winning, I cried for a whole week. But after the first week, I got up, and the very next day, I was volunteering at the same organization that was a part of my advocacy. In that moment, I was reminded that your purpose is not just tied to the crown, and it doesn't have to wait for a title. It starts the moment you choose to serve. That last bit is the universal message, and that is how you create a legacy answer. Now, here's the thing. When you're learning frameworks in order to give structured answers, and at this point, I believe almost every single pageant contestant has heard of the sandwich model. What people forget is the sandwich model is not just the structure and the outline of the answer alone. You also have to deep dive into the ingredients of that sandwich. So one framework that I love sharing with my coaching clients is the ARC framework. Now, what that means is the A stands for answer, R is for relate it with an example, and the C is a closing statement, which is the same structure as your truth, your story, and your universal message. When you've done the work and you've truly reflected on why you want to be a title holder and what is that universal message that you'll be sharing with your audience as the title holder, the last part to any answer actually becomes quite easy, because your universal message does not change based on what the question is. It actually remains consistent, and that's a part of the personal branding that I talked about in the previous episodes. So let's say the question is, what would you want to change about this world? This kind of question is actually pretty common in pageants. And now a lot of people would think that, oh, maybe this means I have to come up with a world-changing global problem. Maybe I have to talk about climate change, or do I have to talk about mental health, or do I have to talk about poverty? It actually has to be, what message do you relate to the most, and what would you want to use your platform for? So if you were to use the ARC method to answer this question, you would start with, the one thing that I would like to change in this world is blank. Now, whatever that problem is that you're trying to address, whether it's women in leadership positions, whether it's a gender pay gap, whether it's awareness around a certain disease or a certain topic that you feel isn't talked about enough. Maybe it's something as simple as, I would love to change the way women see themselves, and more importantly, how young girls are seeing themselves. And that's how you kind of niche down and even make it more specific. Now, for the second part, this is where you're doing visual storytelling. This is where you're giving the relatability part of your answer. And that would be something like, when I was growing up, or when I was 4 years old, you want to take us to a certain moment in your story. Take me there. And timeline is an extremely important part of that. When I was 8 years old, I remember watching movies on television that were probably promoting a type of beauty standard that was, to an 8-year-old, it deeply affected my self-esteem. Along with that, I was bullied throughout my school years for da-da-da-da-da. And so you're just like kind of telling multiple instances of like, this is my story. Now, a sob story alone obviously isn't going to suffice. So this is where you think of your life as a hero's journey. And this is where you have to talk about what changed and what flipped, because your struggle alone does not make you crown worthy. It's what you did to get over it is what makes you worthy and ready for the title. And so perhaps here the situation was, it was only when I started performing on stage that I realized, not that, oh, it helped me express myself, because that's one of those cliche statements, we've heard them way too often. But when I took to stage is when I realized that power doesn't come from perfection, it comes from presence. And so if I were to win this title, I would use this platform to share the message that, and then you fill in that blank, and that blank is your slogan, that's your motto, that's your message, that's your personal brand. When you have the key components of your personal brand and you have the clarity of your purpose, like why exactly are you there? One, it feels so easy. It feels authentic. You're not doing this and saying this because you feel like that's what the judges want to hear from you. And at the same time, creating a legacy answer for any kind of question that you can expect in a pageant becomes super easy. I cannot tell you how incredibly simplified the interview strategy process can become. And inside my coaching programs, I've done all of that work for you. If you know that you're in pageantry, not just for the crown and the title, but for something deeper and for exploring the possibilities of personal growth, I'm opening up a brand new coaching program that includes everything I've been talking about on this YouTube series and more. This covers your paperwork, your messaging, your story, your personal branding, and your interview strategy. So if you want to work with me and dive deeper into pageant preparation that's not just focusing on winning, but rather on owning your power, check out the link in the description and join the waitlist, because you'll be the first to find out the details, and the early birds do get some special bonuses. Now, just like the ARC, there are several other frameworks. Another similar framework that I often use with my clients to answer the question, why should you be the next title holder, which is your elevator pitch question, is the 3P method. Now, the 3Ps stand for promise, proof, and plan. It's actually very similar to the ARC method itself. When you want to answer the question, why should you be the next title holder, your personal brand is a combination of your story, your purpose, and your promise, like I've said. So when you know what your promise is, that's the first part of your answer. Your proof is, again, the visual storytelling. This is where you give them examples to back what you're saying, because the judges also don't just want fluff. They want to believe that you're actually going to do this. And they're not going to believe it just because you say so. They're going to believe you because you've already done it. And so whatever kind of impact you're talking about, you want to be able to give the proof. If you plan on inspiring women, tell me how you've done that already. If you're planning on changing the world and raising awareness about a certain topic, tell me what you've done so far. And it doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't even need to be international or national, but it needs to be authentic. It needs to be genuine. And I need to see that she's done the work and that she has a blueprint of a vision, and she's not just relying on the crown to be able to make a difference. When we work inside my coaching sessions, your proof is where we spend the most amount of time on. This is where we find out, why do you care about this so much? What makes you qualified to talk about this? And lastly, what part of your story is going to resonate with the masses? Because that's also a part of the marketing and the business aspect of pageantry. It just needs to land with a large audience. Then we come to the plan. Your plan is the exact action plan of what you're going to do throughout your reign as a title holder. And it's not just going to be inspiring and empowering and awareness and talking and photo shoots and glam. It has to be specific actions. Are you launching a book series? Are you launching a podcast? Are you going to be having these workshops? What exactly is it going to be? I need to know, and I need to be able to visualize it. When you walk in to ask for an investment for your startup, you don't just tell them what you want to be able to accomplish. You walk them through a pitch, and this is exactly what you're doing inside the interview room when you're answering the question, why should you be the next title holder? That question has nothing to do with why you want to win, but rather the judges are actually asking you, why should I make you win? And why are you the best person for this job? Convince me. So when you have a promise, a proof, a plan, you're not just walking into the interview room and answering questions. The judges can sense that she's prepared to win, she's ready for the job, and she's not just answering the questions and performing like a contestant. She's communicating leadership. And lastly, when you have your legacy answer ready, and for that, you don't want to script and memorize your answers, but you do want to have a script to your core message. What I do work on with my clients is we always have a script to their elevator pitch. They know their personal brand, its core values, their message, their purpose, their story inside out, like the back of their hand. But outside of that pitch, we don't script anything else. For all of the rest of the questions, it just flows very smoothly and effortlessly because they're not performing and they're not giving a speech. They're actually just connecting what the question is to what they have to say. And when you've done all of this work, your delivery will also be paced and confident. You won't be rushing through your best lines. You'll actually be able to breathe. You'll make eye contact and you won't be trying to convince the judges with your words, but it will in fact reflect in your energy. You'll feel the words in your body and the judges will believe it because you deeply believe in it. And that is why it's so important for your purpose and your story and message to be truly aligned with who you are and what you care about. You cannot fake this at all, because when you're faking it, that's when it starts to feel like this is really hard and this is a tough job, but it's actually not. It's not supposed to be. And so to wrap up, if you're feeling not aligned and you're feeling like there's a disconnect between your answers and who you are, maybe we need to work together. And if you want to work with me to speak your truth and own your power, check out the link in the description box below, because you don't want to miss out on the details of my upcoming coaching program, one program that does it all for you. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you found it helpful, please do support the channel by giving this video a big thumbs up. And also next week, we're going to be talking about a phenomena in the pageant world, which I call the miscongeniality trap. So hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell notifications to get notified when the new episode comes out. And with that being said, I love you guys so much, and I'll see you next week. Bye.